Case, and you're listening to Pet Parlor. My co-host this week, Heather Jane, isn't really feeling well today, but she'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll be able to do it live. Pet Parlor is a show on Blue Arrow Media about pet products, pet care, and basic things about pets. And this week, this episode is going to be about lizards. Now, I'm really excited about lizards. It's one of the things that I kind of want to have, and I kind of have a list of things or types of lizards and ways to take care of them. So, the type of lizards that people usually get are like desert lizards, which could be anything between a bearded dragon, which is one of the most popular lizards out in the world today and in pet ownership. And then the second most popular is actually a leopard gecko. There's also the collared lizard, the horned lizard, the zebra-tailed lizard, and the desert tortoise. The other types are tropical lizards. This could be anything between Chinese water-crested, an iguana, a green anole, or chameleons. There's also snakes, which there's corn snakes, boas, ball pythons, king snakes, rat snakes, and milk snakes. Now, milk snakes will have a similar coloration to coral snake, which the only difference is the color pattern. They have the same colors, but in a different pattern. Also, there are the aquatic ones, or aquatic lizards, such as turtles, African turtle, Central American wood turtle, box turtles, stuff like that. And also, in some states, you're allowed to own a caiman, caiman is kind of like a crocodile, but they only get about 4 feet at the most. I'm also throwing in amphibians into this episode because the care for amphibians is going to be the exact same as if you're dealing with an aquatic lizard or a tropical lizard. And some of the amphibians that you can get is like the fire-bellied toad or white tree frogs, tomato frogs, the African bullfrog, even some poison dart frogs or mantellas. I think that's how you pronounce it. That being said, with all these types of lizards, be sure that you're following regulation depending on your state. Some states won't allow you to own a caiman or certain turtles, or even certain types of frogs like the poison dart frog, whereas other states will allow you to own any other animals. And that's the same with also snakes. Now, for lizards, most lizards are carnivorous, and they need a high amount of protein. So you'll wind up feeding them at first crickets or mealworms. If it's a snake, you'll wind up going with feeder rats, which you'll be able to get feeder rats anywhere, any pet store that you go to. Most pet stores will have frozen feeder rats. So you'll have to take a process of thawing out the rat before giving it to your snake, or else your snake will kind of go into a premature hibernation. A lot of other lizards are actually omnivorous, so they'll also eat vegetables. A lot of times you can just get feed for these lizards, such as iguanas and bearded dragons and leopard geckos. They do come out with certain feeds for them, and it's kind of a hybrid mix of vegetables and crickets or mealworms. But certain lizards you can only wind up feeding crickets, such as chameleons. Chameleons will only eat insects and crickets, so you got to keep that in mind. As well as you'll need calcium supplements for the lizards. Lizards tend to have a low calcium deficiency to them. And so that's why you'll find in pet stores there's certain sands that they can absorb through their skin. It's calcium sand, or even some vitamin and calcium supplements that you can put into their food. As a matter of fact, if you're holding on to a bunch of crickets, you can actually feed the crickets a high calcium content food, and they will naturally start producing the calcium in the cricket. And also you got to make sure that you have a water bowl, a water sprayer, or a mister. And this is depending on the type of lizards. For instance, your desert lizard, you'll need a little water thing to make sure he's watered. A lot of your tropical lizards, you need to keep it moist in the tank or in the terrarium. And that's why you'll need a sprayer along with a water bowl to keep a high humidity through it. Or a mister. Now, the specifics for misters and water sprayers will go with chameleons as well, because chameleons will not drink standing water. They'll drink dew buildup from the leaves and twigs and stuff. And so that's why you need a water sprayer to spray the tank every day so that they're watered, or a mister that goes off every few hours to make sure that there's dew buildup on the leaves. Which goes to my next spot, which is terrariums. Now, with terrariums, that's what you keep your lizard in. It's just kind of like a big tank like you will get for fish, but most of it's going to be sand. You're not going to fill it all the way up with water if you have a turtle, only partially way up. And what you should do if you're planning on getting a lizard, whether it's a leopard gecko or an iguana or a bearded dragon, is that you get a terrarium or a tank that would be the size of the lizard when it's full grown. This will make it a lot cheaper for you because you're still going to have to purchase sand to keep clean for bearded dragon, or sediment, bedding and stuff all the time. And the most expensive part of your purchase is going to wind up being that terrarium itself. You might have to customize these terrariums depending on your species of lizard that you get. And this is specifically to tropical lizards. Chameleons will want a lot of things to climb on, and so you'll need to have like a lot of vines, a lot of twigs, whereas like green anoles, they'll be okay with kind of more of a flatter tank. You might want a few things for them to climb on, but it's not really necessary. You're going to need bedding for the animal, and for all your desert animals, what you're going to use is sand. And make sure that you use either a calcium sand, so you don't have to worry about that, the calcium deficiency of your lizard, or you may get sand that has kind of a hardening effect, because if it's a very loose effect, they will wind up getting it everywhere and it's really harder to clean. For more tropical lizards, you'll want to use stuff that's like shredded coconut or kind of a more dirt-based bedding. If you have lizards, or not lizards, but snakes, such as like a ball python or a boa, you'd want to get shredded pine. Now the reason for this is that snakes wind up shedding their skin a lot more than other lizards. And so the pine shavings ease it to shed its skin faster. Also, you'll want to get twigs and branches, specifically for tropical lizards, but also some desert lizards like to climb around in that. But you'll also want to get caves and hiding places for them, for the terrarium, because they're like to hide, they like to rest on top of the decoration, and things like that. Cleaning your terrarium. The best way to do it is to pick up after your lizard as soon as you see the mess. This will make it a lot easier in the long run to clean your terrarium afterwards. That being said, lizards only have one type of a bowel movement. And so, therefore, when they have their bowel movement, it'll be right there, easy to see, easy to clean up, and you're good for the rest of the day. That being said, you do have to do a deep clean. You want to do a deep clean once every 3 months for desert lizards, and for tropical lizards once every month. And the reason why with tropical lizards is you don't want to have a mold buildup on the inside of your tank. That would be the quickest way to have your lizard wind up dying, is from a mold infection or like a black mold problem. And every time you do the deep clean, be sure that you're replacing the bedding or sand when you're doing that. The next is lighting. All lizards will need lighting, and specifically a heat lamp. That's because lizards do not chew their food, they swallow their food whole, and so in order to digest their food, because of them being cold-blooded animals, they need a place to rest and have heat on them, so it helps break down the food in their stomachs. So you'll need to find out if your lizard is a nocturnal or a non-nocturnal lizard. Like a leopard gecko, it's nocturnal, so it will eat at night, and so it'll need more of a heat concept at night. And this is going to be the same with your frogs, is there's a lot of nocturnal frogs, and so you're going to need a heat lamp or a nighttime heat for the frog. And also be sure to keep a constant temperature and humidity in the terrarium and on that spot where they're supposed to digest. It's all depending on the lizard as well. Specifically, bearded dragons need to have one specific spot where they digest their food. And so that spot needs to have a little bit higher of a temperature than the rest of the terrarium. As far as humidity, be sure to get a hydrometer or a hydrometer for people who don't know what a hydrometer is. And what that's going to help you do is to keep that humidity at the right spot. Especially for tropical lizards, if it gets down to a certain point in humidity, it's not going to be able to survive well in dry temperatures or dry places. And that looks like it's it for my lizard episode. This would be a good time to advertise for all the shows that are here on Blue Arrow Media, and also the best way to contact me. If you have any questions or you think I said something wrong, please contact me and I'll be able to discuss it with you and help figure out a better way to make the show better. You can contact me at timcase17 at gmail.com. That's TIMCASE17 at gmail.com. Some of the other shows here on Blue Arrow Media is Tim and Wolf's Puff Life, where I, Timothy Case, along with my friend Brant Wolf, review cigars and pipe tobacco. And we do a pretty good episode every episode. This last episode we did on Sunday, and it was a really enjoyable one. There's also, To an Extent, it was a political show, but this week, and you're hearing it now, or not right now, but you're hearing this new change right now, that To an Extent is going to be a conspiracy show about different types of conspiracies, what's the truths behind